Hey guys, it's Jonathan from Wrestling Talking the Shop. Today we're on a different location. We're at work actually, and it's between Christmas and New Year's, and I got these in the mail, and I said, hell, we'll do a video here today. And you know, it's kind of slow around here right now. So anyway, today we're going to go over Victory Sports Series, The Wrestler. This is the tribute to David Von Erich, June of 1984, Wrestling Magazine. This was right after the Parade of Champions. Which, well, yeah, because that was in May, this is in June. So, I mean, by this time, Kerry Von Erich probably had already lost the title, and they'd come out with a nice tribute to the, he's come out with a nice tribute to David Von Erich, and they got an interview from his family, messages from his family. If you look at that title belt, that's the Texas State heavyweight, Texas State title, essentially. It was Dallas's version of the world heavyweight title. You know, it's their local champion, I guess you might say. That belt looks a lot like that one that Bob Backlund had. I guess they were probably all made by the same maker back then, but I noticed that's got that eagle, and you know, if you look at that Bob Backlund title, once he had his, by this time Hulk Hogan was already champion and had the big green egg, or even the Hogan 84 belt. But that looks like very similar to the World Championship belt that Bob Backlund had when he was WWF champion.
Love that jacket he's got on.
Yeah, cool jacket. Then you see we got in here Nick Buckwinkle versus Dino Bravo in Montreal. A night with no losers, Flair versus Race for charity. But anyway, and Billy Jack Haynes, I guess that's who that is, on his own story, I Owe My Life to Professional Wrestling. Cost $1.50 in June 1985. That's pretty good chunk of change. So we'll jump right into it. I'm gonna let Lindsay do the reading.
I'll do my best here.
And you can see they got now you can have lifetime security in a cash business where you can make $12 to $18 an hour. That's pretty good.
That was big money back then.
I don't know what you're doing here, what kind of Ponzi scheme we were running, but
yeah, who knows.
And then there, check out that furniture there. It looks like some of the furniture my grandma had in her house, my great grandma, and advertising upholstery. Back then they just didn't run out and buy new stuff. They would get what they had fixed. And then you got the table of contents here, your letters, criticism of Race, I assume that's Harley Race, what's happening, correspondence report, you asked us your questions, thumbs up, thumbs down, introducing Brickhouse Brown, Q&A, X-Ray, Billy Jack's own story, Flair versus Race, David Von Erich, We'll Never Forget You, a career retrospective, tributes from his fans and friends, a personal message from his family, and Nick Buckwinkle versus Dino Bravo, Beyond the Squared Circle, candid photos of your favorite stars, ratings analysis, and official wrestling ratings. You want to turn the page there, Lindsay?
Okay.
Your letters. You want to see what the fans were talking about then?
All right. I hate to see it happen. Roddy Piper in the Mid-Atlantic is an extremely popular wrestler, but after being in the WWF for less than a month, he is terribly disliked. His sudden change to rule breaker has left me confused. Piper's managing of Dr. Death and David Schultz and Paul Orndorff has made me wonder.
Whoa, let me stop you there. Dr. Death, David Schultz. He was one person. That's not two people. But anyway.
Well, I know. I'm just saying.
Okay, I didn't know.
Name.
You said, okay.
I know he's one person. Anyway, made me wonder if he's changed. Piper is constantly insulting fan favorites like Tony Garea, how do you say it? Garea.
Yeah.
Tito Santana, and Eddie Gilbert. I hope this change in Piper's actions will not last long. I'd hate to see such an extraordinary wrestler as Piper become a hated rule breaker like Jack and Jerry Briscoe has.
And that's from David Milks.
Well, that's what he built his whole career on. So.
Well, he wasn't. This was right after, I guess, Piper had just joined the WWF, a month into it. We were getting ready for that rock and wrestling, and he was actually not wrestling because his ear was messed up after the dog collar match with Greg Valentine. And anyway, read the criticism of Harley Race.
Quit moving it.
Sorry.
Criticism of race. I would like to comment on the 7-time former NWA World Champion Harley Race. Now that Race has lost the world title to Ric Flair, a lot of critics are saying that his 7th NWA title reign was nothing more than a fluke, much like they did the first time he won in 1973. They also criticized Race by saying that in order for him to have won the NWA title 7 times, he had to have lost it 6 times. What's wrong with these people? Don't they realize that the winning of the NWA title one time alone is a major accomplishment and the dream of every wrestler today? Who cares if Race lost the title the same amount of times he won it? Every wrestler loses it one time or another in his career. The main thing is that when he loses the belt, he shouldn't let it get him down and become depressed. Race has had enough pride and determination to come back and win it again. In my opinion, this fact overshadows any criticism, so why don't all the critics get off of Race's back and start recognizing him the way history will recognize him as the greatest NWA champion of all time?
And that he was. I mean, him and Ric Flair.
I think so, Ric
Hang on, look. You can see that picture there. Race got Flair up. Harley Race about to slam Ric Flair. Should be recognized as the greatest champion of Wrights Mike Strong. Okay. Anyway, you can get big muscle in 7 days.
7 days.
Yeah.
I don't think it works out for him like that. What's happening? All right, let's see what's happening.
We're gonna probably butcher these Japanese names. Forgive us. Jumbo Tsutsurama. We probably butchered that.
Sarula, I think it's what Saruta captured the AWA World Heavyweight Championship from Nick Bockwinkel on February 22nd at the Kurame Sumo Arena in Tokyo, Japan. Sarada won the match using the Luthez style backdrop. Sorry. In the 32-minute mark, Sarada's title clinching.
You should have took a Zyrtec.
Maneuver came right after Bockwinkel had failed with the suplex. Sarada gives credit to these for helping him gain the...
Thez. He gives credit to Thez.
To Thez, for helping him gain the coveted belt. Thez, a 6-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion, was obviously proud of the achievement of his student. I know how Jumbo feels. He said, I've been there a few times myself. I feel like the skating coach in the Olympics who watches the Perrys train for years win the gold medals. So... anyway, so he proud of him.
You want to read the other part?
You want me to keep going?
Yeah, you might as well. We ain't got nothing to do. Read the whole thing.
Here's an interesting match that now took place recently in New Orleans. Gorgeous Jim Garvin versus his former valet Sunshine. Don't believe it? Well, here's what happened. Garvin wrestled blindfolded with one arm tied behind his back. At one point in the match, Garvin's current valet, Precious, interfered and untied Garvin's hand. Garvin reached up to pull his blindfold off, and he was met with the sight of Sunshine brandishing a chair. Wham! That's a match that Garvin will remember for a long time to come.
Sweet
North
Daddy,
America...
Sweet Daddy...
Oh, I missed a part. Sweet Daddy...
Siki
won the North American heavyweight from Pedro Morales in a steel cage match in Banyan, Puerto Rico. Crusher Krusevich is now the new world premier of Russia. It's the name that Crusher Darsol wants to be known by.
Darso. It's Barry Darso. Yeah, okay. That's who he is.
From now on. That's his new name.
Yeah.
Kurt Hennig and Scott McGee lost the Pacific Northwest Tag Team belts on the combination of Rip Oliver and the Assassin. The Fabulous Ones, Steve Kern, and Stan Lee have left the Mid-Southwestern area.
Stan Lane.
Yeah, Lane.
Yeah.
According to the former mentor, Jackie Fargo, the split came about as a result of disagreement over match strategies and tactics, as well as over Fargo's recommended training regimen. We just reached the point where we couldn't agree with anything anymore, Fargo told us. We've also learned that Fargo is looking to endorse another young tag team that will take on the name of the Fabulous Ones. He's reportedly negotiating with Brian Adidas and Kurt Hennig, Tommy Rogers, Terry Taylor, and Eddie Gilbert.
I believe that Scott McGee, I believe that is Scott Hall. And I know he was tag team champions with Kurt Hennig in the early days of his career in AWA. And not long after this, they were doing that. They were, of course, Scott Hall had a big body and looked like a world champion, and they were trying to boost him. But I think Kurt Hennig ended up with the world title instead. But
that was by Bill Apter.
Yeah.
Okay, correspondent reports.
It starts way over here. Oh, it's okay.
Let's see. Oh, up here?
Well, it's the actual
okay, here's the article.
Yeah.
All right. Atlanta, Georgia correspondent Steve Hendricks. The national tag team champion Road Warriors battled Pistol Pez Waitley and his partner Steve Brown Sugar in the Omni.
Brown Sugar.
What did I say?
Sweet.
Oh. Sweet Brown Sugar in the Omni. King Kong Bundy, who had been betrayed by the Road Warriors manager Paul Ellering on television the day before, accompanied the challenges to ringside, presumably to prevent Ellering from interfering with the match. Neither team could take on a decisive advantage in the beginning of the match, as the Road Warriors used their superior strength to combat the high-flying talents of the challengers. Later in the bout, Sugar and Waitley hurt Animal with a double-headed headbutt. As Waitley covered Animal, Ellering ran into the ring, causing his team disqualification. Bundy and Brett Sawyer then joined the melee and cleared the ring. In other bouts, Ted DiBiase defeated Jack Briscoe, Mr. R defeated the Spoiler by disqualification, and Jake Roberts defeated Jerry Briscoe. Ron Garvin defeated King Kong Bundy by countout. Les Thornton drew with Brad Armstrong. Johnny Rich defeated Jesse Barr. In Columbus, South Carolina, from correspondent Jack Murphy, Paul Jones, a team of the Assassins, battled Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, and Dory Funk Jr. Both Funk and Valiant held grudges against their opponent's manager. Jones had cut off Valiant's beard during a television interview 2 weeks earlier. Funk had been managed by the Joneses until he lost the Mid-Atlantic title to Rufus R. Jones, and the two began to feud. The fan favorites attacked their masked opponents at the bell. Soon, however, the Assassins took control with illegal tactics. They double-teamed Funk, who had escaped their grasp, and rolled under the bottom rope and outside of the ring. Funk took advantage of his location outside of the ring by attacking Jones. Valiant then entered the ring and tried to unmask both Assassins. The match ended when Funk held Assassin 1, while Valiant tried to unmask Assassin 2. Valiant drew Assassin 2 over the top rope and was disqualified. In other bouts, Greg Valentine defeated Ernie Ladd, Johnny Weaver, and defeated Gene Anderson. Mark Youngblood defeated Hans Schroeder. Tim Hoyner defeated Gary Royal, and Vinnie Valentine defeated Tony Russo.
This is a correspondence report, but I guess back then, different areas, they would have different correspondents, the internet does it today. I watched pretty much that whole live event in Madison Square Garden last night, just on TikTok alone. But then they got an ad over here. You can discover your inner Olympian.
Turn belly fat into rock hard.
That's what I need to do, turn my belly fat into something.
Yeah, I agree. Me too.
It says, you asked us. Let's see. My question is for Angelo Mosco. What does it feel like to wrestle side by side with your father? He seems to be very proud of you. And it's the greatest feeling, Moscow. My life's goal was to wrestle along with my father ever since the first time I saw one of his matches. It's really become a true dream come true. And this is for Jay Youngblood. It says, I really enjoy watching Jay Young. Oh, maybe it's not for Jay. I don't know. We'll see. I really enjoy watching Jay Youngblood and Wahoo McDaniel wrestle on World Championship Wrestling from Georgia. Are they going to be in the WCW tour cities in Saginaw, Michigan? We're looking forward to it. McDaniel said, Jay and I are really enjoying wrestling together, and we're looking for those national tag titles. I know that the Road Warriors are a tough team, but I think Jay and I might be the right combination to beat them. I hope you'll get to see the chance to come see us at your arena. That's back in that day, TV was just to sell tickets to the live events. Jay Youngblood, he was a big-time tag team partner with Ricky Steamboat. He ended up passing away young. I don't know what the circumstances were or what, but I think he ended up passing away in Australia. My question is for Tommy Rich. What do you think of your friend Paul Orndorff wrestling as a rule breaker in the WWF? I wish I could be there with him. No, that's not what it says. It says, Rich replied, I can't understand what has happened to Paul Orndorff or Rowdy Piper. I thought they were both good. friends of mine, but I haven't heard of them since they left Georgia. Sometimes the people just leave everything behind and start anew. I think that's what happened to Paul and Rowdy. Don't approve of what they're doing in the WWF. I wish I could do it with them, though. That's not what it says. I'm adding my own 2 cents. I don't have anything to say about it. I'm not their daddy. I hope that soon they see what they're doing. They'll do something wrong and they'll make it right.
Left his friends in the dirt. He sounds a little salty there.
Tommy Rich, he was an NWA champion for a short time. You know, over here they got ads. You can get you a Tiger Eye ring.
Start your own home import business.
Oh yeah.
They still have the same things going nowadays. They just do it online.
Yeah.
Look, you could have bought a 35mm camera for $580.
Well, this is you buying it and you're reselling it to different people.
They're resellers.
Yeah.
Orient Jade necklace $460.
Yeah.
Moped $220.
Anyway,
you can make some money there.
We'll
folks.
see who's got the thumbs up, who's got the thumbs down here.
All right.
Ric Flair, the NWA World Champion, is the most sought-after man in the sports of professional wrestling. He has a long list of mandatory challengers to defend his title against. There are many other top stars who are deserving of this title shot. Flair has made his room in his schedule to take on the challengers of young Angelo Moscow Jr. I know I'm probably butchering that, but let's see where this. And the Mid-Atlantic champion Flair understands that Moscow Jr. is deserving of an opportunity to wrestle for the NWA crown, and has shown that he is a fair champion by giving voluntary title shots to the Mid-Atlantic champ.
All right, thumbs up to Sergeant Slaughter. Many fans long wondered how a patriotic man like Sergeant Slaughter could sit idly by while WWF rule breakers like the Iron Sheik, Mr. Fuji, Tiger Chung Lee insulted the United States with their remarks. Slaughter has finally begun to take action against these foreign wrestlers. In a 6-man tag team match at New York's Madison Square Garden, Slaughter turned his back on partners Fuji Lee and sided with Tony Atlas, Rocky Johnson, and Ivan Putski. He has publicly denounced the Sheik, thereby beginning a brutal feud. Slaughter's change in philosophy should be commended. Yep. All right. Next.
Thumbs up to Tito Santana. After months of campaigning in WWF and experiencing the frustration of not receiving opportunities to wrestle for the WWF champion, Santana defeated Magnificent Morocco in the Boston Garden to become the new Intercontinental Champion. Santana fought bravely in this battle, absorbed a great deal of physical punishment during the match before rallying to victory. At one point, Santana had been dropped deep throat fisted on the on the steel fence surrounding the ring, and then was body slammed on the arena floor. Ooh, man, you know that hurt. Santana should be praised for his powers and desire. It was those traits that made him the champion. And
all right, the final thumbs up. Harley Race has reminded the entire wrestling world that the men we see battle in the ring are not just athletes, but caring people as well. Race is in association with the Kansas City wrestling promoters, dedicated to spectacular wrestling card and local high school athlete Jeff Wincina, who had been paralyzed from the shoulders down in a football game. The money collected from the crowd will help the Wincina family pay for the cost of Jeff's treatment and rehab.
That's good. That's good to do that. You know, Harley Race was a good guy.
Raising money from the crowd, not donating any of theirs. You know.
Well, you know.
Anyway,
everybody's got a living to make.
Here's a thumbs down section.
Mr. Wrestling 2. The Mid-South wrestling fans are stunned by the recent actions of Mr. Wrestling 2, supposedly one of the sport's most loved men. Magnum TA, who was coached by Mr. Wrestling 2, was designated as the #1 contender for the Junkyard Dog North American title. 2 ridiculed Mid-South and JYD for choosing Magnum TA, claiming that he and JYD could easily defeat a young star. 2 made a display of jealousy by slapping TA during a television interview. His actions have been reprehensible, or what's that word? Reprehensible, yeah. You gonna read that one?
All right. Thumbs down. Brad Armstrong, national champion Ted DiBiase, as assumed he was wrestling as a masked Tommy Rich when he stepped into the ring. Where'd he go? when he stepped into the ring to defend his belt against Mr. R at the end of the match. He unmasked his opponent to find Brad Armstrong under the hood. Armstrong has been seen with Mr. R on many occasions in the past, so some believe this match was Armstrong's first and only appearance as Mr. R. We feel that Armstrong has disgraced and demeaned the national championship by bringing confusion and controversy into the title picture.
Brad Armstrong, he was a great referee. His dad was a good wrestler, and his I don't know if he still works for the WWE or not, but I know his brother, Road Dogg Jesse James, he works in the backstage role, you know, and you know, they were he was a phenomenal wrestler. I don't know why he gave it up, and you know, referee's probably easier on your body, but
I'm sure.
And then we got a thumbs down to Jimmy Garvin. The former American heavyweight champion recently wrestled in a match against his former valet, Sunshine, who left his employees. Was that what it says?
Who left his employee?
Several months back amidst much bitterness on both sides, despite the fact that Garvin agreed to wear a blindfold and have one arm tied behind his back. Imagine his name should have never been taking place. Even if Sunshine was a trained wrestler, which he is not, it is no place physically demand a sport for a battle between the sexes. They do a lot worse nowadays.
Thumbs down. Sheikh
Adnan Casey.
Casey.
Yeah.
The Arab oil baron turned wrestler manager seems to be preparing for the largest contract purchase in the history of professional wrestling. He recently sent shockwaves throughout the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, by selling oil leases to a number of anonymous investors. It's been rumored that Al Casey is raising great cash reserves in order to purchase the contracts of the Road Warriors, Big John Studd, the Giant Kamala, Hacksaw Butch Reed, and Abdullah the Butcher. Casey should be damned for trying to take control of wrestling through his vast wealth.
He was a manager, Sergeant Slaughter, and he just recently passed away not too long ago.
Yeah.
Or maybe this past year.
I think it was this year.
23 or maybe 22 sometime. He had a good long life. I mean, he actually wrestled for what's that dictator over there that Saddam? Saddam actually wanted to like to see him wrestle and whatnot. I think that's right. Y'all don't quote me on that, but you read stuff and then it's hard to remember how it all exactly all played out, you know, or what you read. Then you can get the back issues. We're advertising more issues.
Old stuff.
Inside Wrestling, $2 each. Is this Inside Wrestling? This ain't Inside Wrestling.
Issues of the Wrestler.
Oh, Issues of the Wrestler.
Well, no, that's Inside Wrestling, and then this is the Wrestler. So they must have owned both of them.
Yeah, you know, back then, you know, a lot of magazines, you know. Then we got Brickhouse Brown.
Introducing Brickhouse Brown.
Oh, introducing Brickhouse Brown.
Yeah. If Brickhouse Brown ever wins the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, the first man he will thank is the Wrestler's senior editor, Bill Apter. 2 years ago, Brown was graduating from the University of Kansas and looking at a future of uncertainty. Thanks to persistence and the help of repeated journalists, Brown is a professional wrestler today. Graduation day was probably the scariest day of my life, Brown said. After high school, I knew I was going to college. But after college, I didn't know where I was going. I wanted to be a professional wrestler, but I didn't know anyone, Brown explained. You just can't show up at an arena and just say, here I am, give me a title shot. You got to know someone, a promoter, another wrestler, even one of the guys who puts the ring together in the arena. You've got to meet someone who can help you. The only man Brown knew in professional wrestling was Apter, and he only knew him through his work with the magazines. I've been reading The Wrestler and Inside Wrestling since I was a kid, Brown said. I didn't know exactly how Mr. Apter I didn't exactly know Mr. Apter, but I felt like I did. Brown sent his first letter to Apter in July of 1982. I don't even remember seeing the first one, Apter said. I get a lot of mail from fans who just want to be wrestlers. The second time Brown wrote to Apter, he sent a photo, and that was a gift from my aunt and uncle. And we'll continue it on page 20. As a graduation present, Brown recalled, I told them I needed photos. I guess they thought I wanted the cap and gown type stuff, and they came to the photo studio. I think they were pretty surprised to see me in wrestling trunks. They walked in and I was doing curls with a pair of dumbbells, pumping up for the photos. Photos of Brickhouse Brown began to appear on Apter's desk soon thereafter. Every 2 or 3 days for about 3 months, an envelope from Brown's Winter Haven, Florida home got dropped on Apter's desk. We have enough photos to paper a whole wall of my office, Apter said, which is exactly what the rest of my staff did. I walked in one morning and I thought I was seeing things. 50 Brickhouse Browns were looking at me. That's when I decided that I had to do something for this kid. Apter said he spent so much money on those prints and postage, so I took some of the photos down and I sent them to some of the promoters with a note attached. It was still a long shot, even with Brown's extensive amateur experience, but I had to give it a chance. The long shot came and Texas promoter Joe Blanchard contacted Brown, and before long Brown was a professional wrestler. It took a lot of guts to get in the ring for the first time, he said. When I first got in the ring and looked at the crowd, I said to myself, what am I doing? I should be out there watching. But the panic came and went really quick, and out of necessity more than anything, he looked across the ring, saw his opponent, Bobby Jaggers, and his mind, trained for the 4 years for collegiate wrestling competition, switched into gear on its own. I had this system in college, he said. I wouldn't look at my opponent until right before the match started. From the time I looked at him, the match was all I thought about. Battling bravely, Brown fell victim to the inexperience and was defeated. He pulled my trunks, Brown said. It's no sour grapes, because I'm not ashamed of that match. I was green. I never expected him to pull off my trunks to pin me. Today it would be a different story. Brown has had experience forced upon him by some of the toughest wrestlers in the Mid-Atlantic area, including U.S. champion Dick Slater and the Assassins. His wrestling knowledge has increased dramatically since his debut, but weighing only 225 pounds, he enters most of his matches as an apparent physical underdog. The size difference doesn't mean a thing to me, he insists. I'm one of the new breed of wrestlers. I'm coming in at 225, but it's a lean 225, no fat at all. I built my body for professional wrestling. I train for power, the combination of strength and speed. The guy who comes in at 270 or 280 make a bigger noise when they get in the body slammed. That's the only difference. They're no stronger than me. Brown's training regimen, which he designed himself, includes weight training, stretching, and cardiovascular exercise. I see myself as a combination of Tony Atlas, Butch Reed, and Sweet Brown Sugar, he said. I haven't come up with a name for my style yet, but let's just say that every time I get in the ring, I'm gunning for it. Maybe I'll call it the get it and go. Or gun it and go. Like the wrestlers he mentioned, Brown's goal is to become the first black world champion, and I think I would have advantage over them, he said. I'm the youngest, and I've got the calendar on my side. Gun it and go.
And you can see Joe Blanchard, that's the father of Tully Blanchard. He was the promoter in San Antonio. I don't really know much about Brown, so I can't really say much about him. You know, I've heard of him, Brickhouse Brown, but I don't. He didn't make it. You know, I do see he's over here wrestling, doing a hip toss or some sort of toss to Barry. Oh, that's Barry Orton. That's Randy Orton's uncle, and he wrestled for the WWF for a short time. You could Google his career and see what happened there. But anyway, we'll move right along. Over here, you got a wrestling game. What kind of game is it, Lindsay?
Card game.
It's that card game, huh?
Over 30 wrestlers included action cards.
Back then, that was the way to get noticed, was the magazines. All the wrestlers wanted to be featured in the magazines. That's how you got booked.
That's a pretty big feature there.
Yeah, that's how you got booked elsewhere. But
yeah.
Got more Q&A over here. First off, congratulations on winning the National Heavyweight Championship. Wait, see, what does this say? Oh, that's the question. It don't say who the question to. I guess maybe Brad Armstrong.
Oh yeah, Brad Armstrong.
Well, thank you. I know there's a lot of extra circumstances surrounding this match, but I'm still very happy about the victory. No one expected it would be under that mask, especially DiBiase. He expected Tommy Rich. I don't know why he would expect Tommy. Do you? Laughs. Tommy has been banned from wrestling. Was this their first time you had wrestled as Mr. R? Maybe, maybe not. But you know who Mr. R is? I know that Mr. R is a good wrestler, and he's a hell of a guy that you're going to get out of me. Okay, well, that rests for now. Why did you masquerade as Mr. R? Even for that one match, don't you think you could have gotten a title shot without doing that? I could have. I could have gotten the shot, but I don't think I could have accomplished as much as I did without the mask as I did it with it. meaning he would have been prepared for the, I don't know, prepared.
I don't know where it goes.
Oh, anyway, read there. I don't
That's
know.
part of it. If he would have known he was wrestling me, he might have prepared differently.
Oh, yeah, I
for
see.
the
Yeah,
match.
yeah.
Okay. But to tell you the truth, I doubt it. I don't think DiBiase trains for anything anymore except finding the most efficient ways of breaking the rules. The thing is, we accomplished something more than taking his title away. Mr. R and Tommy and I humiliated DiBiase. Remember his face when he looked off the mask, and then when he saw Tommy with Mr. Solie? He was stopped cold in his tracks. He was floored. After all that talk about Tommy wrestling as Mr. R, he took off the mask and found me under it. You let him take off the mask? Well, I knew he'd try, but I didn't want to let on that I wanted him to actually get it off, so I struggled a bit first. The look on DiBiase's face was priceless. I knew he'd be numb, and that's when I rolled him into the cradle. Do you feel your need to exact revenge for your father has been satisfied? I haven't even begun to pay DiBiase back for what he did to my father. The man is lying in the hospital. He can't even smile. He has trouble talking. The cheekbones were shattered. They had to remove a rib to form new cheekbones for him. He's in incredible pain. DiBiase broke my dad's face, broke his face. I don't think taking his title away is enough, and I don't know if anything I could do to him will ever be enough. DiBiase has said in interviews that he wasn't the only person responsible for injuring your father. I've heard. I don't know what he means by that. I don't know who else might have been in on this. My father isn't talking about it. I don't really think there is anyone else. I think he said that to try and get me off his back. Let's say there was 1 or 2 or even 3 other people who were indirectly involved in that attack on your father. Don't you think it would be detrimental to your career to spend all your time seeking revenge?
And I guess Ted DiBiase roughed up Bob Armstrong.
Against all of them. Don't you think you could contribute to your losing this title from the first major title you have ever held? Sometimes you have to put aside what you want when you're a member of a family. We're a really close family. We take care of each other. Dad's used to taking care of us, but now it's time for me to take care of him. I owe him so much I couldn't even begin to tell you about it. This title is important to me, and I don't wish to demean it at all, but family is number one with me. There's going to be a whole lot of time for me. Right now, my time is for my dad.
What's this up here? Is this continuing that story?
Yeah.
You gonna read it?
Well, it starts over there.
Oh, where's it start at? I'll read it.
Still you have the national title.
Still you have the national title to defend. DiBiase obviously stands as number 1 contender for the belt, but after him and the whole string of possibly contenders, Jake Roberts, Prez Whiteley, the spoiler, Ronnie Garvin, would all like a chance to win that title. I know there's a whole lot of talented men here. They all deserve a chance to wrestle for this belt. Jake Roberts is particular tough man. I've been in some wars with him. He doesn't let anything stand in his way. If he decides he wants the national title, he's gonna be giving it 100%. The spoiler is a smart veteran who has gotten tougher and tougher through the years. Paul Ellering makes both Roberts and the spoiler even tougher wrestlers just by being in that ring side. Ronnie Garvin and Pistol Pez are the 2 title defenses I would love to make matches against and be classics. Brad, this is the first major singles title you've held. Do the extraordinary circumstances diminish the importance of it at all? Would you like confusion about your identity? I guess I'll never know. That's the way it happened, and that's the way, no power to change it. It was typical title victory, but you've got to admit it was a memorable, and I'll always remember it for I guess it continues.
No, and I'll always remember.
Oh, yeah. That's Brad Armstrong and Bob Armstrong, Bob the Bullet. I guess I know more about Bob from like the Smoky Mountain days. That's where of course I wasn't around when he was when Bob was wrestling, but anyway, you can turn the page.
We've got an advertisement for Wrestling 84 with Kevin.
Yeah, them Von Erichs, they were all over these wrestling magazines back in the day.
He was sculpted there.
There's a young Terry Taylor there.
Wrestling panel examines Terry Taylor.
Each month, the wrestlers panel experts will offer their candid opinion of young wrestler stars up and comings. And let's see what they say about him.
They start over here. Bruno Sammartino. A while back, I saw Terry Taylor wrestling in tag team matches with another young kid named Bobby Fulton. They were very quick and they had a lot of talent. They were a good team. Now I hear that Terry's taking the Mid-South by storm. He decked Nikolai Volkov, and I know how hard that is to do. Anyone who can put Volkov on his back is okay in my book. I think he has a big future ahead of him.
What'd Vern Gagne say about him?
Vern Gagne said Terry Taylor is a lot like I was in style. He's very good drop kick. A lot of people drop kick, but only a few get enough height in their jump to really make it effective. Terry's got it down well. The only problem I see for him is his size. I use speed and the ability to think on my feet to counteract my lack of size. If Terry's going to be a success, he's going to have to do the same.
What'd Gene Knitsky say about him?
This is a little kid. He looks like he should still be in high school, or maybe in one of those beach movies with Annette Funicello, a surfer. That's what he looks like, a beach boy. He sure doesn't look like a wrestler. He doesn't look like he can stand up to the punishment that you have to take in professional wrestling. He's going to get eaten alive. Surf's up, Terry. Go find another career.
Buddy Rogers, you have to respect a man like Terry Taylor. He has jumped right into the Mid-South region. He took on Nikolai Volkov and the Crusher Darso, which is Barry Darso, all alone without even knowing it was going to get any backup. He showed the fans what he was made of, and right away he's a brave young man. He likes his wrestling style, and I like the way he thinks he's going to get a lot of success. He'll end up becoming the Red Rooster in WWE.
He does kind of look like a surfer.
Yeah. What Luthez say about him?
Terry Taylor is a really hard worker. I'm first to admit he has a lot of natural abilities, but he's worked really hard to polish that natural athleticism into wrestling skill. He performs the basic maneuvers with a crispness that makes them all more effective. He keeps himself in tremendous shape, and a lot of people talk about his lack of size. Sure, he's not a super heavy, but he gets the job done, and that's what counts.
Eddie Graham?
And Eddie Graham. I've been watching Terry since he turned pro. He's a Florida born and raised, I know he'd be a star from the first time I seen him work out. He's intense about the sport. I think what he wants right now is to show Volkov and his Russian sympathizer Darso that they can't get away with bad mouth in America. Terry was always grateful for the opportunities he received. Now he wants to pay back some. He's a good man.
That's a hell of a group of legends there. I wonder what they'd say about me. They'd probably break my legs and call me a jabroni. But they could have said worse things, which they were probably paid to say that. But
I'm sure they were.
And then here's Billy Jack Haynes' story. He's got a strange story.
I owe my life to professional wrestling.
You want to start it? Read it.
When I look back on my younger life, I see that our family was very close. We always seemed to be together, camping, playing cards, traveling. We did everything a family could ever want to do. My dad was a diabetic and he'd take insulin shots every morning, but he'd never complain. And after working 10 hours a day, 6 days a week as a painter, he'd always come home with a smile and a hug for his family. My mother always gave him a big kiss and told him she loved him. My dad's brother, Uncle Red, stayed with us almost all the time. He was like a second father to me. When I was 9 years old, I started to go to the local police athletic boys club after school. They had a pool, ping pong, chess, checkers, basketball, football, everything a kid could want. In the 6th grade, at age 11, I led my school in scoring basketball, and I did so in 7th and 8th grade, and I was a straight A student. In 8th grade, at age 13, I was playing basketball at a local community center, and this other boy was pushing me around. We started to fight, and the boxing instructor said, "Let's go put on some gloves and get in the ring." We did, and I beat him up, and the instructor said he thought I had potential. I went home that day and told my parents I wanted to become a pro boxer and be the world champion. This worried my mother, but my father said, "Let the boy try it." I began training in the ring, running and lifting weights, and I was 14 by this time. After school, I'd run cross country, and then I'd train for an hour in the ring, and then I'd go home, do my homework, and lift weights in the garage for an hour before going to bed. By the time I was 15, I was boxing 1 or 2 matches each month. I was also sparring with Andy Kendall, the #1 ranked light heavyweight in the world at that time. Or at one time. I was 6 feet tall and weighed 175 pounds. I was muscular and I had great hand speed. I was starting to turn a few heads. My amateur record ended up being 35-2. Then the first of many tragedies hit. Uncle Red was killed in a truck accident in April of '69. This was a big blow to my family. My mother was shocked, and she was having bad headaches for a week after my uncle's funeral. My dad told her to go to the doctor, and when I got home from school that day, nobody was home, but I found a little note that said my mom had gone to the hospital, and I was scared. My heart was pounding. The phone rang, and it was my aunt calling from the hospital. She was with my father. Mom was in a coma. 3 days later, she died from a brain tumor.
No,
That is sad.
That's sad. Billy Jack, he wrestled all over. He wrestled in Dallas, Portland, Oregon, WWF, and sounds like anyway.
My father was so broken down, he said he'd kill himself. He didn't want to take his insulin shots. He couldn't go home because of the memories. So we stayed at my aunt's house and moved into another house a month later. 5 months later, my dad's mother passed away, and I can remember him holding his head in his hand and crying, "Why me? Why me?" That was my junior year in high school. I was 16 and I quit school. I started hanging around the wrong people. I would get into fights all the time. I quit boxing. I started losing control of myself. My dad thought it would be best for me to join the Army. I agreed and signed up for 3 years. After 9 months, I came home on leave and never returned, and I went AWOL for 9 months more. All my dreams were being shattered. I was turning into a bum. I was good for nothing. The Army gave me an undesirable discharge and a 6-month sentence in the stockade for going AWOL. When I returned home, I felt my life was a complete failure. I had no self-esteem. When I was 20, my father went blind in his right eye, but he still worked every day and acted like it didn't bother him. I got a job as a janitor for $3 an hour, which is all I felt I was worth. After all, I had quit high school, quit the Army, quit boxing. The only thing I didn't quit was lifting weights. It was a way of relieving pressure. Some people drink, some smoke. I chose to lift weights. It was the only thing that kept me going. When I was 21, I started gambling heavy on the dog races. When I lost, I'd borrow money from my dad. Then I was in a fight that resulted in a 4th-degree assault charge, and I was found guilty, but since I had a clean record, I was given probation. At 22, I got in another fight and was found guilty, and this time for harassment. Once again, I wasn't given any sentence. By 23, I had changed jobs 3 or 4 times. I was still doing janitorial work because I had no ambition. Then another punch of tragedy. My dad got a detached retina in his good eye and became completely blind. An operation failed and he would never see again. Life goes on. I was involved in another fight when I was 24 and almost killed another man who was trying to rape a woman. I was beating him senseless out of anger. I didn't know when to stop. And I was found guilty of a 1st-degree assault charge and received a 5-year jail sentence. We tend to believe that professional wrestlers have one-track minds. We think the most important event in their life is their next match. Winning is everything. They dedicate their lives to climbing the ropes, beating the toughest opponents, and ultimately winning the championship. We de-emphasize their personal lives. In fact, sometimes we try to forget that they have lives outside of the ring at all. Pro wrestlers are not machines designed to only battle each other in the ring. They're human beings. Despite the hectic schedules of traveling, the claims of possessing tunnel vision, was that the end of that one? I guess that was the end of that one.
Yeah.
Okay. My bad. I thought this was the same
She's
story.
reading
I'm carrying on.
You're reading the Flair versus Race for the charity.
Yeah. Anyway, well, we'll just keep going. Pro wrestlers, they're human beings despite their hectic schedules of traveling and their claims of possessing tunnel vision. This is a story about a human being named Harley Race. He found a way to use his occupation as a professional wrestler to help a young man who had suffered a life-shattering injury and has reminded us that wrestlers are, in fact, will always be people first.
That's
November 3rd, 1983, 15-year-old Jeff Wincina was playing the defensive team of the Bishop Miege High School football team in Kansas City. While making a tackle, Jeff stumbled and collided head-to-head with his opponent. He was rushed to the hospital. Jeff and his family later found out that he was paralyzed from the shoulder down as a result of the accident. It is likely that Jeff might never wrestle or play football again. At another high school football game the next day, Harley and Evan Race heard about the accident. They had known Jeff through their 13-year-old son, Justin, who had wrestled in the same local tournaments as Jeff. We were so saddened when we heard about what happened to Jeff. Yvonne said that he was such an active boy, and all of a sudden he wouldn't be able to play football, he wouldn't be able to wrestle. More than that, he wouldn't be able to brush his teeth or do any of the things that we do every day. This is the unfortunate beginning of the rest of Jeff's life. After diagnosis of the observation at the local hospital, he was sent to Denver to begin his rehab. I can't imagine how I'd feel if that had been Justin, Race said. his parents were going through hell. First, to have something like this happen to your son, then to have to go off to another state for rehab. On top of all that, the cost involved in this treatment was going to be tremendous. I wanted to do something for the family, and I wanted to be able to help somehow. Although they had known Jeff, the races had to introduce themselves to the rest of the Wincina family. They offered their help, but at first they had no idea of what they could do. Later, Race decided to go to Kansas City wrestling promoter with the idea of having a Jeff Wincina night. I thought we could get some really big names to sign, Race said, and get a whole lot of people in the arena, and then ask them to give a little extra for a good cause. Jeff is a great kid, and his parents are good, honest people, and this has been and going to be a long time to come a hardship for everyone involved. The Wrestling Spectacular was scheduled by Kansas City promoters to take place at Memorial Hall. In the main event, Race, a 7-time former NWA champion, battled the current holder of that title, Ric Flair, in a match from the Central States title. Champion Buzz Avalanche Tyler opposed the challenger, Tully Blanchard, in what was called the Battle of the Giants. Fan favorite Bruiser Brody faced Kamala and the Ugandan Giant. Also appearing on the card were Luke Graham, Doug Vines, Bulldog Brown, Bob Brown, King Cobra, Ron Ritchie, Billy Howard, Tiger Mask, and Scott Ferris. The money collected at the arena has been put into a trust fund for Jeff at the Mid-American Bank in Kansas, Missouri, and that will subsidize the cost of Jeff's treatment and rehab. Yvonne said that the event was more successful than they ever thought possible, and they were so proud of the people who came out to the matches that night, and they showed that they cared about Jeff and showed that they cared about kids and their family, and I'm very proud.
See, that's good. They did that, and they donated their time. You said they didn't donate any money, but they donated their time. That's all that matters.
That's true.
I mean,
they had a lot of big people.
And they probably raised a lot of money for that young man.
No, I'm just playing. That was something really good.
And we'll get into
the main event here. David Von Erich, We Will Never Forget You by Craig Peters. Do you want to read this one or you want me to?
I'll read this page and then let you read. The news came suddenly as early in the morning on February 10th, David Von Erich was found dead in his Tokyo hotel room, the victim of acute enteritis, a severe inflammation of the intestine. Von Erich was just beginning a 3-week tour of Japan. In fact, he hadn't even wrestled in his first match of the tour. Joe Hutabuchi, a referee for All Japan Pro Wrestling Associated, discovered Von Erich in his room at the hotel. An ambulance was called, but police said the medical reports indicated that Von Erich had died in his sleep an hour before the call was made. David was only 25 years old. He died, but in those 25 years, he rose to the statue of a hero, but not only in his home state of Texas, but in the hearts of wrestling fans across the country and around the world. 3 weeks following the news of his death, saw thousands of cards, letters all over the world expressing their sympathy, for the Von Erich family. David Von Erich was born in Lake Dallas, Texas on July 22nd, 1958. The second of five sons, Von Erich sons. He was a football star at Lake Dallas High School. He attended North Texas State on a basketball scholarship. After a year of college, David quit to become a professional wrestler. His debut match took place in the summer of '77 against Gary Hart. I really don't know how I could have avoided professional wrestling as a career, David said in an interview. Shortly after his debut, I had grown up in a wrestling atmosphere. And there's a nice picture of him. I don't know that he was born in Lake Dallas, Texas. I know Kerry was born in New York. So, I mean, they lived all over the place. So I don't necessarily know that he might have been. I really don't know. But he was so young when he passed away. And he was if he had lived, he would have been of course, he would have been an NWA world champion, and he probably went on and worked for Vince and or Crockett, and who knows what might have happened, But anyway, you can turn the page there. Everyone heard about it. Fritz, is this where it starts at? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fritz Von Erich for years. Wrestling is a part of my family. I've always been a good athlete. It seemed natural for me to become a wrestler. Besides, Kevin needs someone to team with. Kevin was the first of the Von Erich brothers to wrestle professionally, and David soon followed in his debut match. David surprised a lot of people, including the opponent Hart and the man Hart managed at the time, Mark Lewin, who knew his involvement in a major feud with Kevin. Hart felt that David would become a pushover, and the fact that he claimed that he would have been able to beat David in 5 minutes. David responded by saying that if I could beat Hart in 5 minutes, he wanted to wrestle Lewin. And then you can see he's got different pictures. There's young pictures of the boys, and you know his.
Closer.
And you can see his football pictures there. He didn't quite have the body that the other boys had, but he had everything else. And then just a tragic loss for the wrestling business. All right, you want to read that? I'll let you read that. In recent years.
Okay. In recent years, David's star shone more and more brightly in the wrestling skies. He added title after title to his list of achievements. It seemed to me that David was the Von Erich to watch, the one who would finally add the Von Erich name to those of Flair, Race, and Funk, and Knitsky, and others of the roster of the NWA World Champions. It is now up to Kevin, Kerry, Mike, and eventually Chris to carry on and give honor to the Von Erich name. I think I speak for the majority when I say that it will be difficult to see any of the Von Erich brothers step into the ring or on TV in person and not think of the one who's no longer with us. That guy was from Greenville.
Yeah, I think he's in the wrestling business. That Rob Moore, I think he does. Maybe I know he's done some stuff for the wrestling business, and he's maybe in the radio. Yeah, he's an ESPN news director out of Dallas, and he's worked for did a commentator for a lot of wrestling. But yeah, he's done a lot of commentating and stuff, and he might even work for World Class at the time. I'm not sure, but see, there's a picture of him.
Oh yeah, so he's from Greenville. That's not very far from us.
Yeah, so. And he's
and let's see, this is from somebody from Deanna Waldrop from Jacksonville, Florida. I hate to be trying to express myself during unfavorable times, but David, Kevin, Kerry, and I started lifting weights and training together while they were still amateurs years ago in Lake Dallas. Because of my long acquaintance from childhood with their father, Fritz Von Erich, I was able to become a professional wrestler and have been for 11 years. David was like a brother and a student and a close friend of mine, and I've known him all my life, and it just seems like such a terrible thing that he has to depart this life and at such an early age and leave everybody behind him that loved him the most. That was Skip Sweet Brown Sugar.
What did Dave Bronco Lubitsch say about him right here when I first came to Texas?
Yeah. When I first came to Texas about 13 years ago, the boys were still going to school, playing basketball and football, and I saw them working out and training. Harley Race came to Dallas in 1977 to wrestle in a non-title match, and leaflets were passed out for the people to vote who they wanted to see wrestle the champs. And it was David. It was unusual because he was so young, and he surprised Harley Race when he wrestled him a 30-minute draw.
Bronco Lubitsch, Texas wrestling referee. The slowest fast count, 3 count you ever seen. Read that, Crystal Dean.
Crystal Dean, Holden, Louisiana. I would like to express my deepest sympathy to the Von Erich family, for they have suffered a great loss. They have lost a son, a brother, a husband, and a great friend. We can always keep his memory alive by thinking of him every once in a while. The memory of David Von Erich will remain in the hearts of fans as long as they live. They will remember the way he was, and that the way he was loved by so many people. We will also remember what a great person he was. The Lord has a reason for everything he does, and he has seen fit to take our loved one home. I hope that people all over the world will remember him and keep his memory alive. And to his family, I would like to say this: life is like a beautiful flower. It is planted, and then it grows into a beautiful blossom, and eventually it is plucked or it fades away and dies. David, I'm sure, would want you to lead happy lives and not let the sorrow of his death get in the way.
All right, turn that page. Let's see what the it's over here. It's got different little articles about.
Yeah, it's got some more pictures of Von Erich and the Baron von Rosch engaged in a classic battle of claws, 1980. And then is that Flair right there on the ground?
Yeah, that's Flair.
Von Erich gave it his all in the NWA World Title matches against Ric Flair and Harley Race below, and he came up just short. The agile Von Erich leaps over, charging Davey O'Hannon in David's only Madison Square Garden appearance in 1979. Okay. I wonder where this continues on from. Maybe the first page?
Maybe so. Read it anyway. Yeah, it's talking about when he beat Gary Hart or whatever.
Okay. David beat Hart very quickly and went on to beat Lewin as well. That incident ignited a feud between the Hart and the Von Erichs that lasted for years. Hart brought many wrestlers into Texas over that time to try and run the Von Erichs out of the state. Bruiser Brody, John Studd, Gino Hernandez, the Great Kabuki, the Spoiler, Ernie Ladd were just a few of the men that Hart sent in against David and his brothers. David's excellence in Texas soon catapulted him to the top of the NWA ratings, where he found himself a perennial contender for the NWA World title. He wrestled that title against Harley Race and Ric Flair. Though he never won the world title, he did succeed in winning several regional singles and tag team titles during his short career. In 1979, David and Kevin combined to defeat the team of Bruiser Brody and Gino Hernandez for the American Tag Team belts. 2 years later, David won the Texas State Heavyweight Championship from Hernandez. With his brother Kevin, David also held the U.S. Tag title and the World Class Tag Team belts, and the All-Asian Tag Team belts, defeating the team of Shohei, Giant Baba, and Jumbo Tsuruta. With brothers Kevin and Kerry, David feuded with the Freebirds over the last couple of years, with the world-class six-man tag team champions changing hands between the two sides several times. Alone, David would go on to hold, among other titles, the Texas Championship 4 times, the Southern title, defeating Jack Briscoe, and the United National belt, defeating Michael Hayes. David also defeated Ric Flair on September 16th, 1983 for the Missouri.
Hang on, I'm gonna read the personal messages from the family. Kevin Von Erich: there were no brothers as close as me, Dave, and Kerry. We grew up in the backwoods, East Texas. We were just country boys, even when we were kids. And the day he died, we all felt like one. What I mean is, it didn't matter, for example, which one of us, all of us might as well win the world title. And if one of us got it, we all had it. There was no jealousy. People ask me how Kerry can go on and wrestle now. At first I thought never again, but then I began looking at the spiritual strengths, and I realized that David is not dead. He is just gone to where Jesus is. It's like we changed plans to go on from one car to another, and then went to Jesus. My family members are very strong Christians. We are given scriptures, and you would not believe how accurate the scriptures are for dealing with the situations like David and all others things in our lives. It is truly wonderful. Dave loved all his fans. He was a cowboy. He would have given 100% in his matches and everything in his life. He could have given it more than the rest assured. He would have become he would have had a rebellious streak in him like most cowboys do, but he never let the best of him. He would have never sacrificed his fans or matches for it. He also loved when the fans would come over and tell him how they felt. Kerry: I wanted people to know he is not gone forever. If you believe in Jesus, you know that we will see him in heaven. The Lord says that on one day, 1,000 years is one day. So to Dave, he is already looking down at us. If you believe, you know he is not gone. We have great Christian friends we share that beliefs with us. Our mom gave us religion early in our lives. She saved us. She had us ask the Lord to come into our hearts, not heads. Excuse me. Fans, thank you for loving him. Keep on loving him with you. We realize that we had the largest family in the world, and we love you all. I want you to mention that Kevin and I will win the world belt, or Kevin or I will win the world belt in David's memory. Our drive is stronger now than ever. Trisha Von Erich, I'm not sure who that is, but anyway, David loved all his fans. I was so happy to see, maybe that's his wife, I'm not sure. So happy to see, I've never felt such strong feeling, devotion, and love from so many people. At the same time, the entire Von Erich family loves you all. We cannot put into words how we feel about certain cards and letters sent to us. We are certain that you will continue to keep David's memory alive forever. And thank you deeply. Mike and Chris, we don't know what we had until Kevin and Kerry and Tricia already said that we certainly feel the same way. We We always knew how much everyone loved David. We want to add our thanks to the people who have added their support in those recent weeks. Editor's notes: Fritz and Doris have asked us to express their gratitude for the fans, the Von Erich family, love and support. Difficult time as of press time. However, they were unavailable for further comments. And we'll turn the page and go to the next one. Let's see. This talks about Nick Buntwinkle, who was, by this time, I imagine his career was winding down, and Dino Bravo, whose career was just taking off. And
okay. No one has to tell a veteran athlete when he's going still, so when Bobby Heenan suggested Nick Bockwinkel watch a videotape of recent match of Bockwinkel's the wrestler, said it wasn't necessary. There's nothing he wanted to see on it. Bockwinkel had known for weeks that it was happening. By concentrating on 2 or 3 top contenders for his AWA belt, the champion had fallen into a rut. His tactics were becoming predictable and his execution sluggish, but he was keeping the championship by lesser and lesser margins. If this kept up, he'd soon be depending on luck to get him through. Champions who depend on luck are quickly ex-champions, so Heenan and Bockwinkel manager never showed the videotapes to the wrestler. Instead, he sat across from Bockwinkel in Nick's study and waited for Nick to say something. Bockwinkel stared straight across his manager and intoned Dino Bravo. Without saying anything, Heenan put a contract on Bockwinkel's desk. It was Bravo's signature already on it. As soon as Bockwinkel signed it, the match would officially be scheduled for Montreal. Bockwinkel's smile was so tight that he looked as if it hurt to move his facial muscles. He signed. For Nick Bockwinkel, wrestling Dino Bravo is like taking a distasteful medicine. It was something Bockwinkel must do, but wishes he didn't have to. Dino pushes Bockwinkel to the champion's limits. More than once, Nick has escaped with his title barely intact. Several of those times, Bravo might have become AWA champion if it wasn't for Heenan's interference. When Bockwinkel signs a match against Bravo, you can bet it's because Nick needed to do it. He never wants to wrestle Bravo. Bravo is, of course, always delighted to get a chance at Bockwinkel. Not only does Dino long for the AWA World Heavyweight Champion, but the sweetest part of all is he would be able to take it from Bockwinkel. To see the tricky Bockwinkel suffers the sight of Dino waving the AWA belt over his head wouldn't be Dino's dream come true. Dino also knows the only reason that Bockwinkel will wrestle him is for Nick to regain his championship edge. That makes Dino's task harder than any other challengers. The night of the match, Bockwinkel looked better than he had in months. Every nerve was alive. Even in the dressing room, he moved with the grace of a stalking animal. Never was a man so anxious and ready for combat. Heenan never looked happier. Beyond the squared circle, it's just people doing stuff. Top women's contender Susan Starr shops with her mother for a new pair of boots. Tommy Rich signs a cover of Spring Edition for some of his fans. Eddie Gilbert takes a look at some old pictures of himself to a visit to our photo warehouse. This guy's taking a picture by a car with the Ric Flair magazine. Dory Funk Jr., an astronaut buff, observes the heavens through his telescope. Brett Sawyer gets close with a fan at the Johnson War Memorial. Yeah, he's real close to her. Billy Jack wins over fans at a young age. This infant is named Amanda Christie, and she's the firstborn to our photographer, Dwayne Long, and his wife, Janice. Manager Gary Hart informs Ernie Ladd of his upcoming schedule of matches. That doesn't look scripted at all. The wrestler's production chief, Carl, drove Carlos Colon back to the airport after his visit to the New York office. And gentleman Ken Timms does push-ups in the dressing room before a match in Warren, Ohio. All right.
This month you'll see talks about what they've got going on there.
Yep. Ratings analysis. Every month this column will tell fans how we go about rating the 150 wrestlers. Do you want to read that? Or let's skip that and go to this. Official wrestling ratings. Top 10.
Just go over
Ric Flair.
We'll go over the world champions. Let's see. Of course, Kerry Von Erich, Dino Bravo. We'll go over the top ones and we'll stop it. You can stop it if you'd like to read them all. And then WWF champion was Hulk Hogan. Georgia was Brad Armstrong. Florida was Ron Bass. Mid-Atlantic was Dick Slater. And then the most popular wrestlers were Andre, Dusty, Hulk Hogan, Jimmy Valiant, Junkyard Dog, Kerry Von Erich, Tito Santana, and Mike Rotunda,
Magnum TA.
and Iceman King Parsons. And then the most hated was Ted DiBiase, Dick Slater, Ron Bass, Nikolai Volkov, Hacksaw Reed, the Iron Sheik, Crusher Darso, Jim Garvin, Ken Patera, and Nick Bunkwinkle. And then it's got the world champion NWA. It's Ric Flair. I guess he was the world champion by this time, the press time. And then AWA was Jumbo Titsarumi. Chris Adams was the world class held a world class top belt. Junkyard Dog, Mid South. Mid Southern was Austin Idol, and Northwest was Rip Oliver. Let's see. Yep. And you can look at it if you like to go to over there all the other rankings. Can you see it good on there? Yeah, you can see it good.
Yeah, you can see it. And all right, some fan letters.
More fan mail here.
Yeah. Let's see what we got here. If I can get the page, I'm stuck. So just continued that. Some back issues, more ads.
You're going so fast, girl. You can't even let them see what's going on.
Sorry.
That's talking about what's happening here. What? And
then we went to this guy's grave.
Oh, Killer Brooks.
Tully Blanchard is headed to the Mid-Atlantic area. Killer Brooks are wrestling in the Texas southwestern area. Hacksaw Duggan says that he doesn't care whether or not the fans are cheering him in Florida. They're not. It's winning matches that matters. The tension between Magnum TA and Mr. Wrestling number 2 is growing greater. Magnum was recently awarded the title match against North American heavyweight champion Junkyard Dog. As a result, Wrestling 2 became extremely upset, and he claimed that JYD wanted to wrestle Magnum only because he knew he could beat him easily, and said that the dog should face a real challenge like himself. After all, Wrestling 2 claimed that Magnum's 1-week title reign as the North American champion was only a fluke.
Then you can get you a professional solid
police badge.
Yeah,
$5.95.
Yeah,
probably about what they cost. I don't think they sell those anymore.
Manager Jim Cornette feels his team, the Midnight Express, is ready to take on the Mid-South tag belts, and that's a young Jim Cornette there. Can you see that?
Well, probably not. Let's move it up closer.
And then Paul Ellering.
Yeah.
Precious Paul Ellering claims to have a fear of his newest enemy, the 420-pound King Kong Bundy.
Well, he's a big boy, so I could see why.
Jerry Lawler drops upon Ken Patera with a double knee drop during a tag match, putting Lawler and Austin Idol against for the AWA champion Pantera and Crusher Blackwell. And then you can get more back issues or whatever.
They're really pushing the back issues.
Yeah.
This last page, back issues. Oh, here's the final of the David Von Erich.
Oh, it's still more. You got to read that.
Yeah, we're going to finish it. For a brief time in 1982, David experimented with rule breaking and began to feud in Florida with Dusty Rhodes. When he returned home to Texas with his loving fans, David resumed his scientific career. Eric applies the headlock on Michael Hayes below left and an armbar on gorgeous Jim Garvin right below. 2 men, he and his brothers, were determined to drive from Texas. This picks up from before. I don't know exactly what he's talking about. It says state heavyweight title, an honor he held until January 6, 1984, when he was defeated by Harley Race in St. Louis. David made his only Madison Square Garden appearance on November 11, 1979, against Davey O'Hannon. At the time, David noted that wrestling in the Garden is the thrill of a lifetime. I have to admit, I'm looking forward to getting back home to Texas. I'm a Lone Star cowboy at heart. And then Tricia and David Von Erich cherish their marriage. I've never in my life felt such a strong feeling of devotion and love from so many people at the same time, Tricia said of the fans who had attended David's funeral. So she was young too.
Even back then, I knew it was special to wrestle in the Garden.
Yeah.
You know.
Late in 1981, David traveled to Florida and struck up a friendship with Dory Funk Jr., a friendship that would soon influence David to adopt some of the stylistic mannerisms of the rule-breaking community. In the autumn of 1982, David vowed that he'd rather quit wrestling than be Dory Funk Jr.'s puppet. And he triumphantly returned to Texas once again to the overwhelming cheers of approval of his fans. And it continues. Shortly thereafter, the Freebirds arrived in Texas. Originally, they claimed to be the friends of David, but they turned on him on Christmas night, 1982. That marked the beginning of the feud between the Freebirds and the Von Erichs that still continues. Throughout his entire career, David attempted to achieve nothing but excellence in his athletic endeavors. If excellence is measured by attainment of championship titles and becoming the object of unmatched admiration by his peers and millions of wrestling fans around the world, David Von Erich certainly reached that pinnacle of excellence he was striving for. David Von Erich achieved much in 25 years on Earth, and as long as we remember those achievements, as long as we recall the excellence that is David Von Erich, we will never be gone, not from our hearts, nor from the pages of wrestling history. All right.
And that's
and then there's a picture of David and Kerry help brother Kevin out of the ring, a grueling 6-man tag team battle against the Freebirds, and the love between the brothers was something special. It was the love the fans had for David. Hundreds of fans come to the First Baptist Church in Denton to repay their respects for the hero.
All right, and that's gonna wrap it up for this. So is there more?
Oh, that's
more advertisements and whatnot.
And that's it.
And that's going to wrap up. I've got a bunch more of these magazines. We may not quite go as in deep depth, I guess you might say, as we did in this one. If you made it to the end of the video, we appreciate you watching. Like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching, guys. Happy New Year.